Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn. We are continuing talking about the purpose of change. We've been basing this series off of a just awesome movie that came out in the theaters in late February called Ordinary Angels. Hilary Swank did a great job playing the lead role. Alan Richter, just a powerful performance, playing the father that lost a wife at the age of 29, had two precious little girls, 5 and 8, and a 5-year-old Michelle needed a liver transplant, and it's a true story. Happened up in the Louisville, Kentucky area, and man, I would encourage you, if you didn't see it in the theater, it was out for about a month. It's a faith-based film, but it's fun. You'll laugh 1 minute, you'll maybe shed a couple of tears a couple of times, but it's a hope-filled story, even at times when it looks hopeless. So I encourage you to check it out. It's available streaming, lots of different places there that you can watch it online. But check out Ordinary Angels. But we've been talking about the purpose of change as we wrap up this series called Finding Your Purpose. And yesterday we kind of focused a lot on Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 12. And just about how we go through different seasons in our life. And there's just a season for time for every activity under heaven. And man, if you missed yesterday's program, really encourage you to go check it out. Go to our website, hopeisheretoday.org. Or if you listen to podcasts, we're on all the platforms. We're on iTunes, we're on Podbean, we're on Spotify. We just encourage you to subscribe. You automatically get our 14-minute program sent to you. Also remind you we have a YouTube channel. Most of our programs are on there. Sometimes we have technical challenges and can't get those on, but the majority of our programs are on our YouTube channel. And man, we would be blessed and honored if you would subscribe to that. And if you've been blessed by a podcast, either on the YouTube channel or any of the podcast platforms, please leave a comment. It encourages us and our financial ministry partners that just help support our ministry financially and make it possible. Well, I want to share with you today 4 things I've learned about change in my over 50 years of life. I'm looking at 2 things that I've learned. I could do a whole week's worth of programs, but I'm going to share a couple today that I've learned, and then I'm going to share a couple of things that I've learned that are barriers to change in our life. So the first thing I want to share with you about change is often my plan is not God's plan and involves a detour. We talk about changing and we think we're going one direction, then all of a sudden, just like on the interstate, especially it seems like in summertime, anytime you're on Interstate 75, right? It seems like there's always construction or something going on. But Jeremiah 29:11, such a powerful verse, says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." And when I read that several years ago, friends, it just jumped in my spirit. I've read it before, but so often, friends, we're just in a different season of life, but God speaks to us right where we need to hear his voice. In that season of life, I really need to know, God, what is your plan for my life? Things just aren't going in the direction, in the way that I thought they would be at this season in my life, at this point. And as I read that verse in my quiet time, I'd never noticed this, even though I'd seen this verse many, many times over my life. But the word plans is in that one Bible verse 3 different times. And it just clearly spoke out to me. God said, "Greg, I know you're a little slow sometimes. You don't focus. You got your to-do list, and you're thinking about the next thing you got to get done. And I just want to remind you, I figured I put the word plans in this one verse 3 times that you would understand that I've got a plan specifically for your one and only life." If somebody listening today, you need to hear that. You need to know that. And everybody's plan's different, friends. Sometimes they might happen to be a little bit, compatible, very similar, all right? But I've learned that quite often, and most often, it is different. And just encourage you to just trust God with that. And, I love that. I heard a pastor say several years ago, you can also personalize Jeremiah 29:11. For instance, "For I know the plans I have for Greg, declares the Lord, plans to prosper Greg and not to harm Greg, plans to give Greg a hope and a future." And I want to encourage you, maybe you want to write that verse out today, and where it says the word "you," put your name in there. And just know that God does have a plan for your one and only life. And friends, I've seen it in my 50 plus years change at different seasons of life that we talked about yesterday. I think the one thing I've had to learn, though, that sometimes, what I think is God's plan, maybe it's not. It's more Greg's plan. And yet, when we spend more time with God, Psalm 37:4 becomes true. It says, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Say it again. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Friends, that's one of the things that I try to, say, hey, God, this is kind of what I'm seeing and feeling, but, is this your will? And I love this. I heard this reason I'm in ministry days because of two guys, Wayne Smith and Mike Bro. And they're just kind of different styles of communicators, different styles of ministry. And yet I just felt like God, I know that God spoke through both these men's lives. Fortunate to consider them both mentors and even be able to call them friends. Wayne's been gone to heaven now for 8 years, but I just am so thankful for those guys, and I've taken a little bit of things I've learned from both of them. And I heard Mike Bro many years ago share this, and I just thought, this is so important, especially when people are trying to find God's will. Mike Bro said, God's will is so much more about who we are than what we do, where we go, and that God wants to be a sculptor in our life. He wants to put us on a wheel and mold us and chisel us and shape our character so that wherever he leads us, we're the right person in that place. God longs for us to desire him more than just his answers for our life. I'm going to say that first part again. God's will is so much more about who we are than what we do and where we go. So I got to ask you today, is there anything in your life that's not God-honoring? Okay? That maybe is kind of separating you from knowing what God's will is, plan, and what there's something he wants to change in your life today. I want to encourage you to give him permission, friends. I'll tell you one of my favorite verses, and it's in the Message version of Romans chapter 12, verses 1 through 2. I want to share that with you. It says, so here's what I want you to do, God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing that you can do for him. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. That's so good. I want to share that again. Instead, fix your attention on God, and you'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what God wants from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity. God brings out the best in you, and he develops well-formed maturity in you. And friends, that's one of my desires for you, if you've been listening this week, is that, change brings maturity in our lives if we allow it. But I've been guilty of resisting change, and I'm trying to be more open to change, even though sometimes I don't like that. And so I want to encourage you today, just ask God, is there anything I need to change? And be careful that you're not letting the culture dictate that, friends. A second thing that we can learn about change is that I've learned in my 50 plus years of life is that we always have a choice on how we react to change. We always have a choice about how we react to change. And the thing I've learned, friends, the most is that our attitude really does determine how we react to change. 30 years ago, somebody gave me this just powerful thing on attitude written by Chuck Swindoll. He's a pastor down in the Dallas, Texas area. When it was given to me, he actually was in California. But just a powerful thing on attitude that I've went to for many, many years just to kind of check my own attitude out. Maybe you've heard it before, but if not, you're going to be blessed. Chuck Swindoll says, the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think, say, or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, or a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. Friends, my big takeaway, and that's so powerful, man, I hope that you will check that out. But the one thing, if you, it's like, okay, Greg, that was a lot, and I agree it was, but it all is just so powerful and true. But the number one takeaway from this attitude thing written by Chuck Swindoll is, I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. Friends, that is a big, big game changer when you can have that kind of mindset. That life's 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. Because it tells us in the book of Job that the rain falls on the just and the unjust. And so, friends, bad things happen to everybody. But life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how I react to it. And I want to encourage you with that today. I can remember back when I had my grocery store 30 years ago, I had a couple people that got pregnant, a couple ladies about the same time. And both of them, really good employees, good people. But I'll never forget one day, my office manager told me, she said, I think we'll see a difference in how both the ladies handle their pregnancy. And I asked her, I said, why is that? She said, I don't think one of them will miss any work because of it. And we'll just plug right along, even though she said, I know pregnancy is tough. She said, but the second one, I'm protecting people's names here, obviously. She said, I think that, it's going to be challenging for her to work and that we're going to have some problems there with things. And I said, what makes you think that? She said, well, one of them is a kind of a glass half full person, and the other one's kind of a glass half empty person. And I thought, you kind of got a valid point in that now that you mention it. And I just said, well, I guess we'll find out. Well, 9 months later, it played out exactly like this my office manager predicted. And the person that was glass half full didn't miss a day of work, was very productive with her job, and even though there's days she didn't feel good, she still showed up and did a good job. And yet the other person, they missed some work. They complained about being tired and things and not feeling good. And I just thought, wow, my office manager, she was really a prophet on that. And so I want to encourage you. Maybe you're going through a challenging situation, and yet, you know what? You can have a good attitude about it, even though it's tough and it's challenging. And I tell you, it makes a big difference. People are watching. They want to see Jesus in people before they want to hear about Jesus. And so I want to encourage you today to really focus on your attitude. And just remember, as Chuck Swindoll says, that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. We're going to continue looking at attitude tomorrow. We're going to be hanging out in Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 through 11. So I hope you'll join us again. You've been blessed by this program. I hope you'll share it with somebody else. Thanks for listening. I'll see you tomorrow. My name's Greg Horn, and this is Hope is Here.